You obey. Every day, all the time you obey. And the most disturbing part is that you don't even notice. Right now, as you read these words, you're obeying an invisible authority that taught you to read from left to right, top to bottom. You don't question it. You just follow. Max Weber knew this. He saw through the layers of authority like no one before him could. And what he discovered is terrifying. You don't obey because you're forced to. You obey because you believe. Because you want to, because you need to. Think about your boss. Why do you do what they tell you? Fear of being fired? Maybe, but Weber would say it's more complex, much more complex. You obey because somewhere in your mind exists a belief that they have the right to command. And this belief wasn't born with you. It was planted, cultivated, watered every day since you were born. Authority isn't a man with a gun pointed at your head. That's brute force. Authority is when you hand over the gun voluntarily. It's when you believe the other person has the right to hold it. And here's the most subtle trick. Real authority, the kind that really matters, is the one you don't even realize you're obeying. Weber called this legitimate domination. Legitimate because you accept it. Domination because you submit. And the most fascinating part is that there are three completely different types of this domination happening to you right now. Three masks that power wears to disguise itself. Three ways to make you kneel while thinking you're standing. If you think you understand authority, if you think you know when you're being manipulated, if you believe you're free because you can. Choose between 40 brands of toothpaste at the supermarket, then you need to hear what Weber discovered. Because the truth is, you live in a web of overlapping authorities, each one pulling its invisible strings, each one whispering in your ear that you're free while you dance to the music they play. And the worst part, you like the music. You ask for an encore. You applaud. That's why you should subscribe now and stay until the end. This journey through the layers of authority will change how you see every order you receive. Every rule you follow, every leader you admire. They told you a story, a beautiful story about freedom and choice. You grew up believing you're the captain of your own ship, the master of your destiny. Every motivational poster, every self-help book, every graduation speech reinforced this myth. You're free. You make your own decisions. You choose your own path. But Weber would laugh at this fairy tale. Not because he was cynical, but because he understood something you've been trained not to see. The myth goes like this. In the past, people obeyed kings and emperors because they had to. Soldiers with swords enforced obedience. But now, in our enlightened age, we've evolved beyond that. We follow rules because they make sense. We obey laws because we voted for them. We listen to leaders because we chose them. Democracy freed us from the chains of arbitrary power. Science freed us from the superstitions of religion. Education freed us from the ignorance of tradition. But here's what they didn't tell you. The chains didn't disappear. They just became invisible. The kings didn't abdicate. They just changed. In clothes. And the most brilliant trick of modern authority is making you believe it doesn't exist. Think about your morning routine. You wake up at a specific time because work demands it. You dress a certain way because society expects it. You check your phone because algorithms designed it to be irresistible. You follow traffic laws, stand in lines, fill out forms, pay taxes, update passwords, accept terms and conditions you never read. And through it all, you feel free because nobody is pointing a gun at you. Nobody is threatening you with a dungeon. Weber saw through this illusion. He understood that modern authority is more powerful precisely because it's invisible. A king could be overthrown. A tyrant could be resisted. But how do you fight an authority that lives inside your own mind? How do you rebel against beliefs you think are your own? The cultural myth teaches you that authority is something external, something imposed. If nobody is forcing you, you must be free. But Weber revealed the opposite. The most effective authority is the one that doesn't need force. It's the one that makes you want to obey. It's the one that makes obedience feel like freedom. You learn to call your cage a home. You learn to call your chains jewelry. You learn to call your obedience choice. And the system that taught you these things, you call it civilization. Progress, the natural order of things. This is the myth you swallowed before you could even speak. And until you see it for what it is, you'll never understand why you do what you do, why you want what you want, why you obey what you obey. You live in a prison without walls, a cage without bars. And the most ingenious part, you're both the prisoner and the guard. Weber understood this paradox better than anyone. He saw how authority creates invisible structures that shape every thought you have, every decision you make, every dream you dare to dream. And these structures are so perfectly designed that you mistake them for reality itself. Picture your daily life as a stage. You wake up and immediately start performing. At home, you play the role of responsible adult. At work, the diligent employee. Online, the curated version of yourself. With friends, the entertaining companion. With family, the dutiful child or parent. Each role comes with its own script, its own rules, its own authorities. And you switch between them so seamlessly that you've forgotten your acting. But who wrote these scripts? Who decided that success means a corner office and a mortgage? Who determined that happiness requires a relationship status and a vacation photo? Who defined what makes you valuable, respectable, normal? You think these are your choices, your values, your goals, but Weber would show you the invisible hands pulling your strings. The prison reveals itself in moments of rebellion that never quite happen. You sit in a meeting, listening to meaningless corporate jargon, and something inside you screams to stand up and walk out. But you don't. You want to tell your family that their expectations are suffocating you, but you don't. You dream of abandoning everything and starting fresh, but you don't. And each time you don't, you tell yourself it's because you're responsible. Mature, realistic. Weber would say it's because the prison is working perfectly. Traditional authority whispers through your family traditions, cultural expectations, the weight of what has always been done. Charismatic authority speaks through every influencer you follow, every leader you admire, every person whose approval you secretly crave. Legal rational authority thunders through every contract you sign, every rule you follow, every system you navigate. 3 different voices, but they all say the same thing. Stay in line. The algorithms know this. They've mapped your prison better than you have. They know exactly which buttons to push, which fears to trigger, which desires to dangle. They've turned Weber's insights into a science of control. Every notification is a bar. Every recommendation is a wall. Every targeted ad is another lock on a door you don't even see. You check your phone 150 times a day, not because anyone is making you, but because the prison is inside you now. You compare yourself to others, not because it brings joy, but because the prison demands it. You pursue goals that make you miserable, not because they fulfill you, but because the prison has convinced you this is what success looks like. And the cruelest irony? You defend this prison. You argue for it. You can't imagine life without it, because Weber's ultimate insight was this: the perfect prison is the one the prisoners build themselves. Max Weber didn't just observe authority, he dissected it like a surgeon examining a disease. In his masterwork, Economy and Society, he laid bare the anatomy of domination with surgical precision. But this wasn't academic exercise. This was a man trying to understand why humans surrender their power so willingly, so completely, so enthusiastically. What he found changed everything. Weber identified 3 pure types of legitimate domination. 3 ways humans convince themselves to kneel, Traditional authority flows from the sacred yesterday. It's your grandmother's voice telling you how things have always been done. It's the weight of centuries pressing down on your shoulders. It doesn't need to make sense. It just needs to be old. You obey because your ancestors obeyed, and questioning it feels like betraying not just rules, but blood itself. Charismatic. Authority burns like fire. It's the leader who makes you believe in impossible things, the person whose mere presence rewrites the rules of reality. You follow not because of logic or tradition, but because something in them calls to something. In you, they promise transformation, revolution, salvation. Weber saw this in prophets and warriors, but you see it in your startup CEO, your favorite politician, your social media guru. You obey because you want to be part of their story, their mission, their magic. Legal, rational authority runs on the cold fuel of bureaucracy. It's the system that turns humans into functions, dreams into procedures, life into flowcharts. You obey because the rules make sense, because the process is efficient, because the form says so. This is the DMV, the tax code, the terms of service. Weber saw this as modernity's special gift to humanity, a form of domination so rational you can't argue with it, so systematic you can't escape it, so normal you can't imagine life without it. But here's what Weber understood that changes everything. These aren't just categories, they're tools, and power uses all three simultaneously. Your boss combines legal authority from their position with charismatic leadership techniques and traditional corporate culture. Your government wraps legal procedures in traditional symbols and charismatic leaders. Social media influencers blend charismatic appeal with traditional values and algorithmic legal structures. Weber called this the routinization of charisma, the transformation of revolutionary energy into stable structures. The way every rebellion becomes a new establishment, every disruption becomes a new normal, every freedom movement becomes a new form of control. He watched charismatic leaders create movements that turned into traditional institutions that developed rational bureaucracies. The circle of domination, always spinning, always evolving, always maintaining its grip. The iron cage, Weber called it, not because it's imposed by force, but because it's built from the very rationality we prize. Efficiency becomes our master. Productivity becomes our purpose. Optimization becomes our obsession. And we built this cage ourselves, bar by bar, rule by rule, app by app. Weber saw it coming over a century ago, the transformation of human life into administered existence, the reduction of people to human resources, the victory of the spreadsheet over the soul. And the most terrifying part, we celebrate it, we call it progress. Now you see it, the matrix of authority you've been swimming in your whole life. And seeing it creates a crisis that Weber knew would come. Because once you understand how authority really works, once you see the strings, you can't unsee them. Every interaction becomes transparent. Every command reveals its structure. Every moment of obedience tastes like surrender. And you realize with growing horror, you're not who you thought you were. You thought your ambitions were yours. But now, you see how they were planted by traditional expectations of success. You thought your values were yours, but now you recognize the charismatic figures who shaped them. You thought your daily routines were yours, but now you understand the legal, rational systems that designed them. You're not an individual making free choices. You're a node in a network of authorities, an intersection where different forms of domination meet and merge. This is the moment when everything breaks. When you realize your personality is a collection of obediences. Your dreams are pre-approved by invisible committees. Your rebellions happen within authorized boundaries. Even your cynicism about authority is just another form of compliance, because it keeps you from actually doing anything about it. You feel it now, don't you? The weight of every yes you've said when you meant no, Every time you've bitten your tongue in a meeting, every dream you've postponed for practical reasons, every authentic impulse you've suppressed for social approval, the trained you and the real you are finally meeting, and they don't recognize each other. The trained you has all the words, all the justifications, all the reasonable explanations. But the real you just wants to scream. Weber felt this too. He wrote about the disenchantment of the world, the way rational authority strips life of magic, meaning, mystery. Everything becomes calculable, predictable, manageable. Your worth becomes your credit score. Your relationships become networking. Your time becomes billable hours. The iron cage isn't just around you, it's in you. It's become your skeleton. But here's where Weber offers something unexpected. Not hope exactly, but clarity. He doesn't tell you to destroy all authority. He knows that's impossible. Humans need structure, need leadership, need some form of order. The question isn't how to eliminate authority, but how to recognize it, understand it, choose it consciously instead of unconsciously. You can't escape authority, but you can stop pretending it doesn't exist. You can't avoid all domination, but you can stop calling it freedom. You can't live without structures, but you can stop believing they're natural laws. This is what Weber offers. Not liberation from authority, but liberation from the illusion that you're already free. The crisis isn't that you've been obeying. The crisis is that you've been obeying blindly. The crisis isn't that authority exists. The crisis is that you've been pretending it doesn't. The crisis isn't that you're dominated. The crisis is that you've been participating in your own domination while calling it choice. And now that you see it, really see it, the question becomes, what are you going to do about it? So here you stand, at the edge of understanding. Weber didn't give you this knowledge to paralyze you. He gave it to you to set you free. Not free from authority, that's a child's fantasy, but free from the illusion, free from the unconscious obedience, free from the sleepwalking submission that most people call life. You now possess something most humans never achieve: awareness. You can see the traditional authority in your family patterns and choose which traditions serve you and which enslave you. You can recognize charismatic authority in its modern disguises and decide when to follow and when to resist. You can understand legal, rational authority as a tool, not a god, and engage with it strategically instead of blindly. This is Weber's real gift, not cynicism, but consciousness, not rebellion, but recognition. You don't have to quit your job. Tomorrow, abandon your family or move to a mountain. But you can start asking different questions. Instead of, what should I do? Ask, who benefits from me doing this? Instead of, what's expected? Ask, who's doing the expecting? Instead of, what's normal? Ask, who defined normal? Every time you catch yourself obeying unconsciously, you create a small crack in the iron cage. Every time you recognize authority operating through you, you reclaim a piece of yourself. Every time you choose your obedience consciously instead of automatically, you transform from a puppet into a player. Weber knew that most people would rather stay asleep. It's comfortable in the cage. The strings are familiar, the scripts are memorized, the roles are secure. But you're not most people, not anymore. Because once you've seen the layers of authority, once you've understood how the machine works, you can't go back to being just another cog. The world needs people who understand authority without being crushed by it, who can work within systems without being consumed by them, who can respect necessary structures without worshipping them, who can follow when it serves a purpose and resist when it doesn't. This is what Weber called the ethic of responsibility. Not the naive belief that you can escape all authority, but the mature recognition that you can choose how to engage with it. This knowledge burns. It should burn. If something inside you is on fire right now, don't let it go out. That fire is your authentic self finally getting oxygen. Fan it, feed it. Let it light your way through the maze of authorities that surround you. Share this video with someone who's ready to see. Someone who's been feeling the strings but can't name them. Someone who knows something's wrong but can't articulate what. Because every person who wakes up to the reality of authority makes the cage a little weaker for everyone. Every conscious choice chips away at unconscious domination. Every aware human makes the world a little more free. Weber revealed the layers. Now it's your turn to start peeling them back. Subscribe to this channel not because an authority told you to, but because you choose to join others who are learning to see. The revolution isn't in the streets. It's in the moment you stop pretending you're not obeying and start choosing your obediences wisely. That's where your freedom lives. That's where your power waits. That's where your real life begins.